even think people can see what it is. But here's my background. It's a groundhog.
Nice.
When they gave the little piece of clothing, the Wookiee clothing, to the little
Basil.
Well,
you kind of are in proportion, so you're like the little groundhog in Bill Murray's lap.
Everybody's like, oh, 6 more weeks of winter. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. I know my background now. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Dads of Dagobah as we review The Acolyte, episode 4. What do you think, Sean?
What did I think? I thought a few different things. After our episode last week, and even after we filmed our review, I feel like I got more into the social media discourse for The Acolyte and just this wave of negativity that I was exposed to. And usually when that happens, I tend to kind of resist against that, like, because they hate it so much, like maybe I'll come a little more centrist to the middle. And a lot of the gripes about episode 3, I felt like I didn't dislike episode 3 for the same reasons I was seeing online. However, I did feel like episode 3 derailed the show a little bit in terms of the plot that I was actually interested in, which was the May OSHA Jedi investigation type thing. And so the positive I'll say for episode 4 is that they were back on track with that. However, it's not scratching my itch. Let's just say that. It's not scratching my itch.
I totally agree. You can't give us 15 seconds of, oh, that's interesting, after 4 episodes of, okay, what's going on here,
Yeah, I mean, I think let's jump just straight to the end of the episode where the Sith reveals himself. I immediately am disappointed that we get another thing that I wanted to see that's, pun intended here, cut down in its prime in seeing that Kelnaka is dead already.
Yeah, do we even get to see a Wookiee fighting?
I know. I'm like, can I see the Wookiee in action? Come on. Give me the Wookiee in action. And then 2, 1, I think you predicted this last week when you said that you felt like the handler guy is the Sith master.
Yeah, I think.
And I was like, no, there's no way. And now I'm like, oh, you were totally right. Like, obviously,
he's totally doing, not to lead any credence to this theory, but he's doing a bit of Darth Jar Jar, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
A bumbling idiot, or Yoda on Dagobah. Bumbling idiot, so super silly. Oh, no big deal. Oh, your master will kill you.
Right. And I
Get
feel
me down from this trap, you silly girl.
Yeah, so I definitely am like, okay, you totally predicted that one. That was a great call out by you. But as soon as the episode ended, my 2 major thoughts are, number 1, I don't agree that it's like, oh, that's a great episode because you left it on this cliffhanger of the fight is just starting and now it's like, oh, I'm like, finish out the scene. Give us some sort of resolution to this interaction or conflict. Or, I just don't, I'm tired of this storytelling device of we're going to cut it off after a 30 however minute long episode it was, the one interesting thing that happens, and then we're going to turn the episode off. It's like, come on. There's not enough payoff for the build of me watching the episode.
Oh, totally. I am 100% with you.
And then the second thing I thought was just more.
Can I guess what it is?
Oh yeah, go.
Was that Keanu Mundi?
Okay, I did ask that. And was that Plo Koon? Keanu Mundi during the council part, and then when they were on the ship and Yord was giving his briefing, there was a guy that looked like Plo Koon in the background.
Oh, I missed that.
And that has to be Ki-Adi-Mundi.
I think in the credits it's confirmed it's him.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch the credits. But the second thought I had about the end of the episode was more of a lore thing, which I know that's what everyone's been up in arms about the last week, about that the showrunner is, fracturing the integrity of established Star Wars lore. And while I'm like, whatever, I feel like there's room to expand the rules of the Force and things like that. I guess it's just somewhat annoying to me that I'm like, Sol is a Jedi Master, and he's got 7 other Jedi there with him, and one Sith guy is like ragdolling 8 Jedi at the beginning of this fight. And I'm just like, I'm just tired of this depiction of the Jedi as these just like weaklings. I'm like, are the Jedi really that inferior to the Sith? That one Sith guy, and if it is bumbling idiot dude, it's like this one Sith guy is able to ragdoll 7 Jedi Masters / Knights when they see him and they're like fully aware. I'm like, that doesn't line up for me on like how the Force should be working, but whatever.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I don't know that I care so much about the lore being broken, because I think the show is purposely set in a place where we can expand on certain things, and I'm ready and willing. I don't know that I'm a fan of the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. Like, that was like, what in the world is going on here?
You nailed the melody, though.
Huh?
You nailed the melody, though.
Yeah, thank you. Did I get the words wrong? Can I say, can I do a new prediction?
Yes.
How come we haven't seen the little symbol on May's head yet? Or Osha? We haven't seen Osha's blank forehead. So
I thought
keeping
we did see it on May's forehead.
Yeah, because the Jedi, whatever her name was, she like revealed it
in the first episode. Yeah.
I just wonder if something's there.
What? I don't understand what the prediction
is. It the same girl? No one ever sees both of them at the same time.
You think they're like schizophrenic or something?
Maybe. Because like she's in the doorway. So like the only time they ever see each other is when they're in private. Like on that planet when they're she fights Sol and then she drives away, May drives away, and then Osha's like, oh, pew, missed.
Okay. And so you think Sol is just like enabling it, of like one of the personalities comes out every once in a while and he's trying to convince Osha that.
Well, he's like, there's still good in her. Remember, he's like, we need to. Well, first of all, I don't like the fact that the Jedi are using Osha as like some pawn in their grand scheme to fight the Sith. Like, can't you just do that on your own? I didn't understand the logic of like, if we capture May, then she won't give up the location of her Sith unless Osha's there. And I'm like, you Jedi, you guys are so dadgum evil. This like seems so outside of the code, you know? They're like, you have to come along with us. And you can be with your sister again because there's still good in her, and you're the only one that can change her. So
that would track though with a couple of comments from the episode. You're talking to her about maybe Master Soul's bringing you here to confront May. Maybe you're confronting yourself, or whatever. So that would track with that. And I also, as soon as Soul said this line, I told Corey, I'm like, one of them's gonna die. When he said, as soon as we get May and get her safely back to the ship, I'll explain everything. I'm like, they're not gonna make it back. There will be no explanation.
I said the same thing to Abby. I'm like, oh, he's dead. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, they're not going to be able to explain it because someone's not making it back to the ship.
Yeah. Anyway, um, I just overall I feel so frustrated by this show, and I think I've said this many times with like Obi-Wan and like Book of Boba Fett, where it's just like you're hanging the whole series on like a few good things, you know, a fight with Darth Vader at the end. We knew it was coming. We knew it was going to happen. We're just kind of watching the show to see that happen, right? Or like Book of Boba Fett. I don't remember why we kept watching, but it was like, oh, maybe like we knew Mandalorian would somehow play in. I can't remember what, but or there were a few episodes of The Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett, and we're like, oh, okay, this is a good, this is a good show. This show, I feel like, even now, I'm still like, why do I care? Why? What's the driving? Okay, cool. And I totally agree with you. Like, we need to finish this fight scene. We need to do something because the next episode I doubt is going to start with a continuation of this fight scene, right? It's going to be some other, opening, and so we won't ever. Part of me fears that we won't ever see the fight, but I don't know. I just get anyway.
I mean, when he forced Hurricane to everybody, a lot of dust and stuff came up. It could be that he just grabs OSHA or something and escapes. The Sith does and doesn't actually fight the Jedi, and they're all disoriented in the dust, and they're like, "Where, OSHA? Where are you?" And then the dust settles, and they're all gone. That's what I think's gonna happen.
Yeah, that would stink. It'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like, except for Andor and Mandalorian. I mean, Mandalorian's been good, but the other shows have had like really, in my opinion, kind of incredible moments that I'm like, this is great. This is really awesome. It just hasn't been like consistent across the series.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like Obi-Wan had like episodes that were complete duds of like, what is this? And then it had episodes that were like, this is amazing. um, and Book of Boba Fett mostly was bad. But Ahsoka had episodes I really liked and I thought had cool moments, but then it had parts where I was like, this isn't very good, So Andor has really been the only one that I'm like, the whole series, the whole season was like, this is a great narrative, great story, great acting, like across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, Acolyte is kind of falling into the mediocre mid type performance of the other live action Disney Plus Star Wars shows.
Yeah. And honestly, I'm thinking like this show is going to be so forgettable, I feel like, at least so far. Just like, anyway, I just.
Do you feel like they're still holding something in reserve of like fan service or something like that to like make it like, oh, like this is an amazing show?
I think there's going to be something with Plagueis or something with Sidious or something with Plagueis. And that's going to be the big thing.
I was thinking either that or they're going to do some sort of like Yoda cameo. Maybe not be like actually do anything, but just like a single line or something where he shows up and does something. Because if
Really?
they're showing Kiadi Mundi and they're showing Plo Koon and whatever, it's like he's there, he's around. Like, where's he in all of this?
That's going to be their thing in the second half of the season?
I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't put it past them and for them to think like, okay, this is like a big moment that's like a fan service moment. But in my opinion, when Disney first acquired Star Wars and came out with Force Awakens and things like that, the fan service was appreciated because we had just gone for, a decade without Star Wars. now we're getting so much Star Wars that I don't need the fan service stuff anymore because
Mhm.
we're like oversaturated with Star Wars now. So
Mhm.
the fan service moments in like cameos or whatever, the Easter egg stuff is like it's not doing anything for me anymore.
Yeah. I don't think that Plagueis would be a cameo, or I think it would be just kind of setting up like that whole opera scene, you know?
Yeah. I
We
wonder
really
because
need
have
to
they
know a
announced
lot.
this is gonna have they announced this will be like a season 2?
I don't know.
The other thing that I also, and this is maybe I'm getting too drinking too much of the haterade, but I, the Green Lady and the Jedi hierarchy, I'm like, is she like she's like the leader of the subcommittee? Because they're talking about like the High Council, which I'm assuming is like the Jedi Council with all the masters on it.
Mhm.
But Soul is a master, and I think she's also a master. So there's like a lower council of masters, and
Yeah.
is she the
Yeah.
leader of that? Because she's like very bossy, calling all the shots, and Soul has to keep talking her out of things and like saying like, "Hey, let's do this instead."
Yeah,
'Cause-
I think it's like the cabinet. It's like she's the deputy director of
yeah,
Sith finding. You
yeah.
know, I don't know. Bad guys.
I will say too, another positive thing. It piqued my interest a little bit when we started to see the shift in May that she was like not trusting her guide anymore and was
Did
like
that
her
just come
plan
out of
was,
the blue though? It just totally came out of the blue for me.
yeah, I mean, I feel like they tried to set it up with like a couple of dinky scenes of her using facial expression acting when her and the guide were walking through the forest of like her like questioning what he's saying or kind of giving an extended look at him to show that she was kind of losing trust in what he was saying. But I did feel like it was like a 180 of like, hey, I just decided actually I'm just gonna go surrender to Kelnaka and join the Jedi, and then I'll get to be with Osha. My loyalty's to Osha. I'm like, how far are you down the Sith path that you're like killing people that you just all of a sudden lost your conviction?
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I agree. There probably were some scenes that were setting it up, or some little looks, but like, then all of a sudden she's like, totally like, I'm done. I'm like, what in the world? Yeah. Gosh, that was.
I also felt like it was weird, speaking of my background, that they had this whole filler scene of she touched a beetle, the beetle wakes up, Soul kills the beetle, and then those things are not a threat anymore. And I'm like, all right, like interesting. Like,
They
what
got to fit a monster in there somewhere.
was that just to set up her telling his current Padawan like I
Sensitive.
sensed that creature and then it died. Like I caused its death. Like she's sensitive to that. I don't know. Last thing I'll say, I also think that there's a lot of dialogue in this show. When you really listen to the lines, you're like,
Don't even.
no one talks like this.
Yeah.
This
Yep.
isn't a real conversation. The whole we're not defined by what we lose, we're defined by what we survive. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And that's not like a profound statement. I don't even agree with it. I think that that's like a weird take. And
Yeah.
it
When
was like,
Osha and what's her face were talking to the Jedi Temple, they're like these weird pauses, and I'm like, what's going on? This. What's the point of this conversation? I
it
did not
reminded me of
understand.
the, go ahead.
Well, it's just she was just like, I gotta leave. I'm not wanted anymore. Oh, you're leaving the Jedi? Well, I never really was here. And, just like, what is this conversation doing?
And then when when Soul tracks her down and is like, "Hey, I can only go see May if you come with me," and she's like, "You want me to rejoin the Jedi?" And he's like, "No, just come with me on this mission." And she's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Do you want to rejoin the Jedi?" Like,
Remember, they
I'm
don't have
so
to wear
confused.
civilian clothes, and then she's in the civilian clothes, and then she's like talking. She's like, "What's that thing's name?" And they're like, "Oh, it's forgot it
Basil.
again, Basil." And then he's like, "What? What is?" He's like, "Did you follow in the briefing, or do you have any questions about the briefing?" No, that was perfectly said. I was like, What is going on here?
The whole line about we are not defined by what we lose, we're defined by what we survive reminded me of Rose being like, we're not going to win by destroying what we hate, we're going to win by saving what we love. And I'm like, this is vague platitudes that have no bearing on the actual events of what we're doing right now. Whether you destroy what you hate or save what you love, you're about to get your butt kicked by the First Order, and you need firepower, Rose. Your little
Well,
line isn't going to magically save everybody.
well, the fire was in the kiss. That was pretty firepower kiss right there.
It's true. It's true. Packed a punch. So anyway, those types of lines, I'm like, I feel like they are put in these shows, and if you think they're dumb, then the apologist will say that you're like you don't get it, or you're not profound enough, or they'll be like, no, that really is really insightful. And I'm like, okay, maybe in your life you feel like that really resonated. I usually feel like those lines fall flat for me.
Yep. Where would you rank the show? How would you rank these 4 episodes? Where does it fall? I think last week you went.
I did like a 5.5 last week.
Yeah.
The first 2 were higher for me, like 6.5 and 7, I think. This one, what was last week was a 5 and 5.5. So this week I'll do a 5.51.
Whoa. I think I gave last week a 4. This week I'll give a 4.01. I don't know. I mean, maybe a 5 this week. Better than last week. Last week was hard. Last week was real hard.
Well, really, what my real ranking is I would lower my last week down now that I'm further into the show. One more week into the show.
Yeah.
So episode 3, I'd move down to like a 5 and put 4 at a 5.5.
Yeah. We have 4 more weeks of this.
So I know we want to keep these briefer than we've had in the past, but I guess my last question to you is there anything after we are now halfway through this show? Is there anything in this show that you still are looking forward to seeing or getting an answer to or finding out? Like, what is motivating you to continue to watch the show?
I think ultimately what I think the show is setting up and what I'm excited for still is the Sith's ability to create life. And I think we're going to find out more about that. Like, we're not to the point of creating Anakin in this show, but I think we'll learn, because obviously the witches did it, and so I think we'll learn more about that. So more of the lore of the Sith is kind of what I'm excited about.
Interesting. Okay. I don't even think that they're trying to set that up as like a main narrative. I don't even think they're going to go back to that. Well,
really?
maybe they will. Maybe they will to try to explain how May and Osha were created. I guess you're right.
What about you?
I was gonna say the only thing left that I feel like is still like an unanswered question that I'm intrigued to find out is what really happened on that night. What was the Jedi's role in all those witches dying?
You notice the Padawan last week who got possessed, the young guy, and then who got killed by the poison. In the poison scene, he had a big scar across his face, which he doesn't have in the witches episode. So obviously, there must have been a fight at the temple or whatever we're calling it, where he got slashed. Also, I have one more question. That little Basil dude. There were how many Jedi with him? 6, 7?
Yeah, something like that.
Was he a fast-moving rodent? How did they lose him?
They kept losing him.
Oh, we've lost him again. I'm like, he's not really going that fast, everyone. I don't understand.
My question was, they were clearly where they landed in that little settlement, and they're like, he's in that forest. And then the next scene we get of him tracking is they're scaling the side of a mountain. And I'm like, you just needed to go straight into the forest. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay, well, I guess we will try this again next week, Sean.
Until next,
Back to.
That's right. Until next time, I'm going back to the back to. We're gonna make that catchphrase work.
We are. Anyway, we will see you guys next week on the Dads of Dagobah. This is the way.
We have spoken. Bye.